Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming back to the Love and Betrayal channel. Today, I have a new and quite interesting story to share with you. The day we both left him behind. I remember the sound of the gavel, a sharp crack that echoed louder than it should have, even though the courtroom was nearly empty. Divorce granted. And just like that, 11 years were reduced to one sentence. I didn't cry. Not when we walked in, not when the judge asked if we were sure, not even when I watched Michael sign the papers without looking at me. It was like we were ticking a box, just another errand. Drop off the mail, pick up groceries, end the marriage. We stepped out of the courthouse into the cold afternoon air. The silence between us was deafening. Not angry, just empty. He looked at me for the first time in hours. "I'll grab an Uber." I nodded. "I'll walk, I need some air." He paused for a second, then turned and walked away. And just like that, it was over. Except it wasn't. Because as I turned to walk down the steps, I saw him, Cooper, sitting there, just to the side of the courthouse steps, leash tied to a bench, tail still, eyes locked on the door. On us, he'd waited. For hours. My stomach dropped. Michael, you brought him?" He turned back slightly annoyed. He wouldn't stop whining when I left. Thought it'd be easier. "You brought him to our divorce? He's just a dog. Just a dog." I looked at Cooper, his ears perked up the moment he saw me. His whole body tense like he was about to leap into my arms. But he didn't. He waited. Because he didn't know which one of us he still belonged to. Michael walked back over, awkwardly fiddling with the leash. "Look, I figured that you'd take him." "Me? You're the one who wanted him in the first place." I clenched my jaw. "He was family. We both raised him." Michael shrugged. "Yeah, well, I can't take care of him. Not with the new place. No pets allowed." And just like that, it was said, it was decided. He let go of the leash, dropped it right there on the pavement, and walked away. Cooper didn't follow. He just sat there, looking from him to me, eyes wide, confused, waiting. I crouched beside him. His tail wagged weakly. I whispered, "I'm sorry, Coop." I reached for the leash, paused, and then I let go. I turned and walked away, leaving him behind. He didn't bark, didn't cry. He just stayed, like he believed one of us would come back. I walked 5 blocks before I realized I couldn't breathe. Sat on a bench, pressed my hands against my chest. What had I just done? It wasn't just a dog. He was Cooper, the one who waited at the door every evening, laid beside me when I was sick, whimpered and nudged me when Michael and I would fight behind closed doors. He was the one constant, the one creature who gave without taking, and I'd left him outside a courthouse like forgotten luggage. I stood up, ran back, heart racing. What if he was gone? What if someone had taken him? But when I reached the bench, he was still there, sitting, waiting, leash untouched, eyes still trained on the door. Not angry, not even sad. Just loyal. When he saw me, he didn't jump, didn't bark. He just slowly stood, wagged his tail, and pressed his head into my leg, like saying, "I knew you'd come back." I sank to the ground, wrapped my arms around him, and sobbed. For everything, for the 11 years, for the papers, for the silence, for the fact that the only one who truly stayed through it all was him. I whispered through tears, "I left you, I'm sorry." And in response, he licked my face, forgiving me faster than I could. And I could forgive myself. That night, Cooper slept beside me on the floor of my new apartment. No furniture, no photos, no warmth. Except him. He didn't care that the bed wasn't set up, that the heater made weird noises, that I cried quietly at 2 a.m. He just stayed. Because that's what he'd always done. And that's when I realized he wasn't just the dog we had. He was the last part of our love that hadn't left. I thought bringing Cooper home would feel like peace, like the last thread of something good. But instead, it felt like living with a ghost. Not because of him, but because of what he reminded me of. The way he'd wait at the bathroom door while I brushed my teeth, just like he used to, the way he'd drop his tennis ball at the foot of the bed, expecting Michael to throw it. Only Michael wasn't here anymore. Cooper didn't bark, didn't whimper, but he watched the door every night. Like he was waiting for the sound of keys, the sound of footsteps, the sound of something, someone coming home. It broke my heart, but I told myself, he'll adjust, just give it time. I said it so often that I almost believed it. Until the morning I found him curled up in the laundry basket, sniffing one of Michael's old shirts I forgot I still had. His body was still, his nose buried deep in the cloth. And when I tried to take it away, he growled. Not angry, not aggressive, but sad. like I was taking away the last cent of the person he still believed was part of his pack. I sat on the floor beside him, ran my hand down his back. He's not coming back, Coop. His eyes didn't move. Later that day, I found him standing at the front door, not barking, not pacing, just waiting. It wasn't until a week later that I started noticing something else. He was following me everywhere, not just from room to room, but into the shower, into the closet, into the smallest corners, like he didn't want me out of his sight, like he thought if I disappeared, I wouldn't come back. I called the vet. Is he okay? He's acting strange. She was kind. Asked about recent changes. When I mentioned the divorce, she paused. He's grieving, just like you. Grieving. The word hit me harder than I expected, because I hadn't allowed myself to feel that. I was too busy pretending to be fine, too busy telling people. It was mutual. We're better off apart. It was time. But Cooper knew better. One night I woke up at 3 a.m. Cooper wasn't at the foot of the bed. I found him sitting in the kitchen, facing the door, tense, tail still. I knelt beside him. What is it, boy? He didn't move. Then I heard it too. Keys, on the other side of the door, turning, clicking. I froze. Had I forgotten to change the locks? Before I could move, the door opened a crack, then stopped, and a familiar voice. It's me, Michael. Cooper didn't bark, but he didn't move either. He stood between me and the door, still guarded, conflicted. I opened the door slowly. Michael stood there in the hallway, looking just as lost as I felt. I'm sorry, he said, but I left my name on the lease when we signed it, and the landlord gave me the wrong key by accident. I didn't mean to. I waved it off. But Cooper didn't. He stepped forward, nudged Michael once, then stepped in. Michael looked down. He's still with you. I nodded. You left him. I know. Silence. Then he whispered, he still waits for me, doesn't he? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Michael knelt. Cooper didn't lick him, didn't wag his tail. He just sat, watching, like he was weighing something heavier than words. Michael stood up. I'm glad he has you. He turned to leave. But before he did, Cooper followed. One step, then two, then stopped and looked at me, eyes full of questions I couldn't answer. You can go if you want, I whispered. But he didn't. He turned, walked back to me, and sat by my feet. Like he knew. He wasn't waiting for Michael anymore. He was watching me. Because I was the one who hadn't healed yet. After that night, I couldn't pretend anymore. Not to Cooper, not to myself. I had told everyone, I'm fine. But I wasn't. I was functioning, waking up, working, eating enough to not worry my sister. But I wasn't okay. Because I missed Michael. Not just in the way people miss their exes, but in the quiet, dull ache of missing a version of myself that only existed with him. I hadn't said that out loud, not even to the mirror. But Cooper, he knew. Every time I cried in the shower, he lay outside the bathroom door. When I tried to sleep but couldn't, he would place his head gently on my lap. No bark, no pressure, just presence. The funny thing was, he never did this when Michael and I were together. Not like this. Almost like now that it was just the two of us, he was stepping into the space Michael had left behind. And part of me hated that. Because I didn't want him to carry that weight. He was just a dog. He shouldn't have to heal me. But he did it anyway. I started writing again. Not anything for work, just for me. Little notes, letters I never sent, things I didn't say when I should have. One evening, I was sitting on the couch with my journal open when Lena, my younger sister, called. You sound better, she said. Not fixed, but softer. I looked down at Cooper, who was sleeping with one paw across my foot. It's him, I said. She chuckled. The dog. Yeah, but it's not just about the dog. It's about how he never left. There was a pause. Then she whispered, You mean like Michael did? I didn't reply, but tears welled up in my eyes. Because yes, yeah, that's exactly what I meant. The next morning, Cooper brought me a sock. One of Michael's. I hadn't even known it was still in the laundry bin. I stared at it. Gray, worn. Faint smell of cologne still lingering, and I cracked. I curled up on the floor, clutching that stupid sock, and sobbed harder than I had in months. Cooper pressed against my side. Let me cry. Didn't move. Didn't leave. Just stayed. After what felt like hours, I wiped my face. You knew I wasn't okay, and I didn't even know how to admit it. His ears twitched, like he was listening. I looked him straight in the eyes and finally said it. I still love him. My voice shook. I didn't want to. I wanted to be strong, wanted to be the one who walked away first, but the truth is, I didn't stop loving him. I just stopped knowing how to live with him. There, it was out. The thing I had refused to say out loud. Cooper licked my cheek gently, as if to say, now we can begin. That night, I dreamed of the three of us again. Me, Michael, Cooper. We were in the old house, laughing, cooking dinner. The kind of scene I used to imagine when we first got married. Before the fights, before the silence, before the empty glances across the dinner table. When I woke up, I didn't cry. Instead, I went to the window. The sun was just rising, and Cooper was already sitting by the door, waiting, not for Michael, not for anything, just ready. And for the first time, so was I. Later that day, I packed a box of Michael's things, not out of anger, but because I was finally ready to let go with love, not bitterness. Cooper followed me as I carried it to the car. I didn't know if I'd mail it or leave it at his door or maybe just keep it for a while longer. But the act of packing it was enough. As I taped the box shut, Cooper barked. Once, loud, happy. It was the first time he'd barked in weeks. And I swear, it sounded like relief. That evening, I sat on the floor beside him and whispered, "You knew I was lying to myself, didn't you?" He placed his paw on my knee, as if to say, "You weren't ready, now you are." And I was, ready to heal, ready to remember without breaking, ready to let love exist without expectation. Because maybe Cooper wasn't just the dog we rescued. Maybe he was the rescue. It had been almost 3 weeks since I'd seen Michael. Not a text, not a call, no awkward run-ins at the grocery store. It was like he'd vanished along with everything we were. Until that Saturday morning. I was sipping coffee on the porch. Cooper lay beside me, head resting on my foot. The sun was warm, the kind of golden quiet you don't want to interrupt. But then, the sound of a car pulling up. Cooper's ears perked first. Then his head lifted, tail wagging once, then twice, and I knew. Before I even looked, I knew. Michael stepped out of the car slowly. He wasn't smiling, wasn't stiff either. Just unsure. His hands were in his pockets. He wore the same blue jacket I used to steal on cold mornings. Cooper stood up, not barking, not running, just watching, waiting. Michael stopped at the gate. "Hey," my voice caught in my throat. I nodded. "Hey." He looked down. "Can I see him?" I gestured to Cooper. "He's right here." Michael stepped inside. Slow, measured. Like every footstep might set something fragile off balance. Cooper walked toward him, then stopped, waited. Like he was giving Michael the choice. Michael knelt, held out a hand. "Hey, buddy." Cooper sniffed, hesitated, then gently nudged his head under Michael's hand. That was all it took. Michael exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for months. They stayed like that for a while. Michael petting him, Cooper leaning in. The kind of silent reunion that didn't need words. I stood by the porch, arms crossed, trying to act neutral. But inside, I was shaken. Finally, Michael looked up. "I wasn't going to come. I thought maybe it'd be better to stay away." I stayed quiet. Let him keep going. "But last night, I had a dream. Cooper was alone, sitting in front of the courthouse, still waiting." His voice broke slightly. "And I woke up, and I couldn't breathe." He looked at me then, not with pleading, not with regret, but something softer. "I didn't come back for you," he said. I nodded. "I know. I came back for him." And I believed him, because Cooper had been the best part of us. The quiet thread that held us together long after the words stopped working. "But when I saw him with you again," Michael added, "I realized maybe I was wrong. Maybe you were both waiting for me to come back. For the right reason. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't." I walked down the steps and sat beside Cooper. He leaned against both of us, his head between us, and for a moment, it felt like we were a family again. Not whole, not healed, but trying. Michael looked down. "I didn't know how much I missed him until I saw him forgive me," I whispered. "He always forgives faster than we do." Silence. Then he asked, "Would it be okay if I took him for the day? Just a walk, like old times?" I hesitated. Cooper looked up at me, not begging, just and just asking, waiting for my decision. I nodded. "Okay, just bring him back by dinner." Michael smiled. "Of course." I handed him the leash. And Cooper didn't sit there. Didn't resist. Didn't pull. Just walked beside him like he'd been waiting for this day since the moment we left the courthouse. As they walked away, I felt something surprising. Not fear, not jealousy, not even sadness. Just closure. Because whether Michael came back for Cooper, or for me, or for something he hadn't yet named, he came back. And Cooper, still believed in both of us. ChatGPT said, Toyliande, Kenyoi, Chunta Tip took the part 5 của series The Dog Who Waited Outside the Divorce Court, nơi Michael đã quay lại để đưa Cooper đi dạo. Nhưng chính trong khoảng thời gian đó, sự im lặng giữa họ bắt đầu nói thay cho mọi lời đã mất. Part 5. The silence that said everything. It was just supposed to be a walk. An hour, maybe two, maybe two. But when they didn't come back by sunset, I started pacing. Not because I didn't trust Michael, but because I didn't know what this meant for Cooper, for me, for the spaces we used to fill together. Then, just as I poured water into Cooper's bowl, I heard the car door shut outside, the porch light flicked on, and there they were. Michael, Cooper, side by side. Like nothing had changed, like everything had. I opened the door. Michael held the leash loosely, but Cooper didn't move forward. He waited, looking at me, tail still, eyes steady. Sorry we were late, Michael said, his voice quiet. We walked further than I expected. I nodded. Did he remember the old route? Every turn. Michael chuckled, but his eyes weren't laughing. They were heavy, like he'd carried more than a leash today. Cooper stepped inside first. But before curling up like usual, he did something strange. He turned around, sat in the middle of the living room, and waited. Michael followed, standing by the door awkwardly. He didn't want to go back to the apartment, kept tugging the leash when we got close. I looked at Cooper. He was still staring at both of us, like he was waiting for a decision neither of us had made yet. And you can stay for a bit, I said softly. Michael blinked. Just for a coffee or something. He nodded. Okay. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table. 2 mugs, 1 silence. And Cooper? Curled up at our feet, right in the middle, like a bridge between shorelines no longer at war. We didn't talk much. Just sipped and watched the I'd a steam rise, listened to the hum of the refrigerator. It should have been awkward. But it wasn't. It was something else. Familiar. Like a song you forgot the words to but still hum the tune. After a while, Michael spoke. He stopped by the bakery we used to take him to. I smiled. Did he scratch the glass like always? Michael grinned. Left 2 nose prints right next to each other. We laughed. Softly. And for a moment. It felt like when we still danced in the kitchen barefoot, when Cooper was just a puppy who chewed our furniture but not our nerves, when silence wasn't a wall but a comfort. Michael looked down at his mug. He hasn't changed. No, I agreed. He's still at him. But we did. That stopped me. He looked up. Do you ever wonder if we gave up too soon? I didn't answer right away. Because I had. Many nights, many showers, many letters never sent. Yes, I said finally, but I think we needed to break first. He nodded. Maybe, or maybe we forgot how to forgive, and he never did. He glanced down at Cooper, who let out a small sigh in his sleep. We sat in silence again. But this time, and it wasn't empty. It was full of things we used to say, of things we never did. Then Michael said it, barely above a whisper. He's the best thing we ever did together. And this time, I didn't hold back the tear that slipped down my cheek. I reached under the table and touched Cooper's paw. Yeah, he is. It was late. Michael stood up. I should go. You don't have to. He froze. What? I mean, if you want to stay a while. Cooper seems calmer when you're here. He hesitated, then nodded. Only if you have another mug. I smiled. I've got 2. That night, the 3 of us sat on the couch. Not touching, not talking, just existing. Cooper stretched across both our laps, tail twitching in his dreams. And in the silence, we found something we hadn't had in years. Stillness, softness, a space. Sometimes love doesn't come back with fireworks. Sometimes it returns quietly. On 4 paws, with tired eyes, and the kind of silence that says, I never stopped believing in you. ChatGPT said, Toyliande Ken, yêu ơi chúng ta tiếp tục với part 6 của series The Dog Who Waited Outside the Divorce Court. Nơi Michael không đặt câu hỏi nào, nhưng mọi thứ trong không gian, từ ánh mắt Cooper đến những khoảnh khắc tưởng chừng bình thường, lại khiến cô tự đưa ra câu trả lời. Part 6, the question he didn't ask, but I answered anyway. The next morning I woke up before the sun. The air in the apartment was still, warm, and unfamiliar in a way that felt oddly comforting. Cooper was at my feet. Michael was still on the couch, curled on one side, blanket halfway kicked off, face turned toward the window, peaceful. I stood in the doorway for a long time, not watching him like a stranger, but like someone who used to know every curve of that face, every scar, every frown line. It had been months since I saw him like that. Not guarded, not frustrated, just quiet. And I realized something. He hadn't asked, not once, not if I still loved him, not if I was seeing someone else, not even if I thought we had a chance again. But somehow, it was like he didn't need to, because the answer was already there. In the way I poured 2 mugs of coffee without asking, in the way I let him stay on the couch without hesitation, in the way Cooper stopped pacing at night. Michael stirred awake as I set the coffee down on the table. Morning, he murmured. Morning, I replied softly. He looked around, then at me. I forgot what it feels like to wake up in a place that doesn't echo. I smiled faintly. I forgot what it feels like to let someone be here in the morning. Cooper walked in, stretching, yawning, tail wagging. He paused halfway between us, then nudged Michael's knee. Like saying, "Get up, you're still part of this." Michael sat up slowly. "I'll take him out. Let me come." We walked quietly through the neighborhood. It was early enough that the streets were still soft with silence. Cooper led the way, leash loose, ears relaxed. At one point, Michael looked over. "You ever think we were better at being dog parents than partners?" I chuckled. "Yeah, we didn't fight over feeding schedules. We didn't go to therapy because someone forgot to walk him." We both laughed. But it faded quickly, it faded quickly, because we both knew it was never just about chores. It was about feeling seen, heard, respected. Michael stopped by the bakery again, ordered 2 coffees, a scone for me, blueberry, a cheese biscuit for Cooper. He didn't ask what I wanted, but he remembered. And that was the question. And the answer. We sat at the same bench we used to, outside the bakery, Cooper between us, chewing happily. Michael handed me the coffee. "Still 2 creams, no sugar?" I nodded. "Still." He looked at me carefully. "I know I didn't ask, but if I did." I stopped him, held up a hand. "Don't." His face fell slightly. "Okay, but I wasn't finished. Don't ask me if I still love you. Don't ask if we should try again. Don't ask if I forgive you for walking away." He looked down. I waited, then added, "Because I already answered every day I let you back in." He looked up slowly. "You did? When I let you take Cooper, when I made 2 mugs of coffee, when I didn't ask where you went all those nights after we split." His eyes softened, and suddenly he wasn't the man who signed divorce papers. He was the man who once danced with me in the kitchen, holding Cooper like a baby. "I didn't ask," he said, "because I was afraid the answer would break me. And I answered anyway," I replied, "because I was tired of pretending it didn't matter." The silence returned, but it wasn't empty. It was full of the things we didn't destroy. Cooper laid his head in Michael's lap, then looked at me, tail wagging, eyes warm, as if saying, "There, you said it finally." We finished breakfast quietly, then walked home together. Michael didn't ask to stay. I didn't ask if he would. We didn't need to, because some questions don't need to be spoken, and some answers are found in the way a dog lays between 2 people and finally falls asleep. It started with a simple idea. Michael and I were sitting on the porch sipping coffee while Cooper lay in his usual spot between us. The light was soft, morning sun filtering through the leaves, and Cooper looked happy, really happy. "We should take a picture." "Take a picture," Michael said. I looked at him. He wasn't smiling wide, just that quiet, hopeful smile I used to know. "Of Cooper? Of us, all of us." I hesitated, because it sounded so normal, so easy, like we hadn't signed divorce papers 3 months ago. But I looked down at Cooper, his head resting on Michael's foot, tail thumping against mine, and I knew it was time. Michael set up the phone on the railing, propped it against a plant pot like we used to, set the timer, then ran to sit beside me. We didn't pose, didn't lean into each other like old times. We just sat. And Cooper, he did the rest. He climbed into both our laps, awkward, heavy, warm, and looked directly into the camera. Click. The image that froze on the screen wasn't perfect. My hair was messy, Michael's shirt was wrinkled, Cooper's tongue was halfway out. But there was something else. Peace. I looked at the photo, then at Michael, and we both said nothing. Because the picture said it all. Later that day, I printed it out. Not digitally. I went to the local photo shop and asked for a physical copy. Glossy. 4x6. The kind you frame. When I brought it home, Cooper followed me to the hallway, watched me hang it up, right where the wedding photo used to be. "Do you think it's weird?" I asked him. "Sin replacing that one with this?" He tilted his head, as if to say, "No, that one was a dream. This one is real." That evening, Michael came over again, not because we planned it, just because he showed up. and I opened the door. We sat on the floor, playing with Cooper's new rope toy. He growled playfully, tugging it from one of us to the other. Michael laughed. He hasn't done this in months. I know. It's like he's home again. Silence. Then Michael said, "Do you think we could try?" I paused, looked at Cooper. He was lying on his back, legs up, belly exposed, completely vulnerable, completely safe. I took a deep breath. Trying means not expecting it to look the same. I don't want it to, I just want it to be honest. We didn't make promises that night. Didn't say things like forever or again, but when he stayed the night and Cooper curled in the middle like always, it felt like the beginning of something new. The next morning, I found Michael in the kitchen making coffee. 2 mugs, still no sugar. He handed one to me and smiled. I printed something too. He pulled a small envelope from his bag. Inside, another photo. It wasn't the one from yesterday. It was from 3 years ago. The 3 of us, covered in mud after hiking, Michael holding Cooper in his arms like a baby. I was laughing, hair a mess. Cooper had his tongue out and one paw stretched toward me. "You kept this," I whispered. "Always." He handed it to me, not to replace anything, just to remember where we began. I taped it beside the new one. 2 photos, side by side. Where we were and where we are. And Cooper, he stared at them both, then walked over and sat, right beneath them, like guarding a shrine. That night, as I turned off the lights, Michael whispered, "He always knew, didn't he?" I nodded. Long before we did. ChatGPT said, "Toylande, can you? Ochumtad invoi part taint. Fun kit hook dap, tront van, vade cam suk ko series, the dog who waited outside the divorce court. Đây là nơi không còn lời nào cần nói, bởi mỗi câu trả lời đã nằm trong ánh mắt, hành động và sự bình yên mà họ và Cooper cùng tạo ra." Part Ed, the day we didn't need words anymore, it wasn't a grand moment. No declarations, no dramatic confessions, no candlelit dinners or surprise gestures. It was a Tuesday. Just a Tuesday. The sky was gray, rain tapping gently on the windows. I was folding laundry. Michael was fixing a squeaky cabinet door. Cooper lay in the hallway, head on his paws, tail flicking occasionally as he drifted in and out of sleep. And in the silence, everything felt right. It had been a month since the morning coffee, 2 weeks since Michael started leaving his shoes by the door again, 5 days since he moved his toothbrush back next to mine. There was no conversation, no checklist, just small things, subtle things, things that said, "I'm here, I choose this," again and again. I finished folding a shirt and placed it in the drawer. Michael passed behind me, brushing his fingers against my shoulder as he walked by. I didn't flinch, didn't freeze. I just breathed, and it didn't hurt. Cooper perked up when we both entered the living room. He looked between us, then stood, stretched, and walked over. He placed his paw on Michael's foot, then rested his head against my knee. "He's getting older," Michael said, gently petting him. Yeah, his muzzle had gone grayer, his steps slower, but his eyes, still so full of clarity. Still watching, still guarding, still loving. Michael whispered, "Do you think he knew we'd come back to this?" He didn't just know, I smiled. He waited for it. I reached down and kissed Cooper's head. He looked up at me, blinked slowly, and gave a single tail wag. We sat together on the floor, all 3 of us, the same way we did when we first brought him home years ago, back when we were still learning how to love, back when we didn't know how to fix what we broke, back when we thought saying forever was enough. But today we didn't say it, because we didn't need to. Forever isn't built in words. It's built in who stays when it's hard, who listens when you go quiet, who waits outside courthouses and still believes in home. That night we had dinner. Not fancy. Leftover pasta and wine. Michael washed the dishes I dried. Cooper lay under the table. Just like old times, only better. Because this time, there was no pretending, no pressure. Just truth, just presence, just us. And then, just us. Later, as I got into bed, Michael slipped in beside me without a word. Cooper jumped up too, like it was his right. And it was. We didn't stop him, didn't shoo him away. We made room. Because that's what this love had become, a place where there's always room. I turned off the lamp. The room went dark. And in that silence, the kind that used to feel like distance, now it just felt like peace. No, I love you. No, I'm sorry. No, let's try again. Just breathing, soft and steady, side by side. And in the dark, Michael reached for my hand. I held it. No words, because we didn't need them anymore. We were here, and that was enough. Cooper sighed in his sleep. the deep, satisfied kind of sigh, the kind you let out when then he said, you let out when your job is done. And for the first time in a long time, I believed we were home.